Right. So, welcome to another episode of Soundtrack of Our Lives. We're chuckling a bit because we've just, you were here as Paul was recording his, and he's a what's I call it, a force of nature, a very fantastic guy, full of energy. So he's just jetted off. But we are now going to do your show. Okay. So, Debbie, tell us a little bit about what it is you do. You've mentioned a couple of things here. Have I read this right? Cosmic Crone?
Yep.
Yeah? Yeah. And also elemental sacred ceremonies.
Yeah.
So what do these entail?
Okay, so the Cosmic Crone is about that connection to something bigger than ourselves. So that could be nature, it could be angels, it could be God, it could be anything where you feel there's a connection. Music, anything where it touches your soul. And so you kind of like, I'm here right now, and I'm present, I'm in this moment, and that's really an important place to be. So it kind of gives you that trust, A, in yourself, and B, in something bigger than yourself, so knowing that your life is always working for you, not against you, and that the universe always has your back. And it's always teaching us lessons, and it's our job to understand those lessons and then turn that into wisdom, so that we can be a much stronger, dedicated person to ourselves. So
this is kind of a long, and I'm probably, I don't even know if the terminology is right here, a bit of a generalisation, but it's kind of, it's spiritual, but it's spiritual's, maybe people have the wrong idea about what spiritualism is, I think. Yeah. Because it doesn't have to be, I don't know, you sat in a wooded glade, whatever. It can be listening to a particular piece of music, or maybe going to a beach and painting the beach on some canvas or whatever. Yeah. It's not quite as straightforward or as simplistic as maybe people think.
And I think it's like spiritual people. It doesn't make any difference who you are. So you can be just the most funniest person in the world, you can be the most dedicated person in the world, and have humility and wisdom and just be yourself. It's about being yourself, who you are.
Authentic.
Authentic, integral, realising, compassionate, kind, but boundaries, so that people don't walk all over you, that you actually have to have boundaries in life where you can say no, and it's okay to say no. And the spiritual path is about finding the deeper sense of self, the deeper sense of who you are and the impact that you can make. And people spend a lot of time in their heads trying to work out who they are, trying to be like other people, trying to do what other people say to fit in with the world. And then once you kind of understand that actually you don't need to do those things, that actually what makes you unique and different is you and what's inside of you. So it's the way in which you bring the magic to life.
Yeah, and that's, I suppose it becomes quite empowering. So once you find these things that spark your soul, or whatever you word it, and follow those and become a more authentic you, you're actually you're doing the right thing by the world anyway. Because if you're not following what your dreams are or your passions, you're doing the world a disservice, because we've all got something that we're particularly good at and should be doing. And then we kind of stay in our heads about we think we should be doing, rather than using our intuition and actually thinking to ourselves, right, okay, I need to take my mind out of this, I need to go for a walk, I need to do some breathing, I need to do something that brings me back into presence, where those intuitive hits can just drop in. And people always think kind of like they have to get to the end journey, because then I've made it, then I've been successful, then I've been fulfilled. But actually the journey is about those next step, then the next step, then the next step. And it's kind of, as long as you are focused on your path and where you're going, then the people that are meant to be around you, the people that are supportive, will appear. But when we try to adapt ourselves to fit in and belong, then we're on a journey to nowhere, because all we're doing is following other people and what other people have done. And then all the time, that quiet voice inside just gets silenced and silenced and silenced until we don't know who we are anymore. Let people lose themselves a bit.
And
then, and the other one I mentioned there, elemental sacred ceremonies. It's a similar thing.
So I'm a celebrant. So I do weddings and vow renewals, naming ceremonies, and I like vow renewals really because it's people that have been married for a while and they've got married in whatever church or religion that they're in, and so there's a prescriptive message, something that you have to say, and this is the way that it is. And one of the things about being a celebrant and having that spiritual connection to the land, to people, for me, means that things are sacred in life. So if you imagine, every word we say is a prayer. Every single word that we say is heard by the universe. So when you get that chance to be able to use your own words when you're doing a vow renewal to somebody that you love, you're going to use your words that come from your heart and from your soul.
Much more meaning to it,
very much more meaningful. Yeah.
And you also, so I know you through Balsall Common Radio, where we both have shows, but your show is on a Sunday night, Soulful Journeys, Exploring the Divine, if I remember this correctly. I should do, because I do all the posters. I was to make sure I get that right. So you're on from 8 till 10 on a Sunday, and you each week you have a theme or a topic, and you put songs around that. So you can, if people, you can either search BC Radio or say Balsall Common Radio on smart speakers. It's on lots of radio apps as well. You can listen in, put some requests in there, but you go through a lot of spiritual stuff in there.
So whatever the topic is, so it's like, say for instance, boundaries. So it's how to put boundaries in, how to say the word no and be confident about how to say the word no, and train our voice and our body to understand the word no. Because when we're speaking it, actually the body needs to feel it. And when it feels it, it say, right, I really mean no, and then other people will feel it as well. So what are boundaries, how to put them in place, how to be really kind to yourself if we get things wrong. Because inevitably we're all learning. So it's being kind. But the fact is that we have a go.
Try. Absolutely.
Well,
as I always say with people, I will put all of your information in the description of the video so people can get in touch about the cosmic side, the celebrant side. I'll link to the radio station as well so they can listen to your show. And that way, if anyone wants to get in touch about what you do and try to work with you, they can do.
Lovely.
Okay, so right, we're going to jump straight into first song choice of the day. This is Elaine Page in Memories. And what made you pick this particular song?
Well, my dad passed away. He had melanoma cancer, and it was very, very quick, a few months. And he was very much a nature person. He was a fisherman. I loved my dad. I did lots of things with my dad, and used to love spending time with him. And he passed away, and my mum chose Memories by Elaine Page. And to me, at that time in my life when he passed, I've got two small girls. I was in the army. I'd had to come out of the army to look after my girls, and my husband travelled away a lot at the time. So there was just me and the girls, and I just remember thinking, okay, I've got to get on with life. So I numbed all the emotions, numbed the fact that I'd lost my dad, and thought, oh well, it's just my dad. I've got to get on and bring the kids up, I've got to work and all those type of things. So I suppressed that grief for at least 10 years. And just got on with things. And every time I hear this song, I always think, because when the coffin was actually going through the curtains, my mum went to move forward, and I remember just holding her arm, and she went, no, I was just going to wave, and I thought she was actually going to go after the coffin, but yeah, and the church was filled, and there were people outside and everything, and it was just such a lovely song.
And so you say that your dad was a very outdoorsy person, and always out in nature, and like you say, fishing and things. And what did he? So you I didn't know this about you, that you were in the army. Was your dad in the army as well?
He was in conscription, where he had to be in.
Yes.
I can't think what it's called.
I don't know what the word. Conscription might be the word.
Oh, national service.
And that guy, the PM's talking about it, hasn't he?
Yes, that's right. So he was in there for 2 years.
Yeah, and then you've done some service.
I did some service, yeah. I joined the army myself when I was about 21, so I was quite late really to join the army. I went and did my 6 weeks at Guildford training, and then from there I went and did my trade training. So I was at Guildford for 6 weeks and then went to Catterick and did my trade training. So I was in the signals. So at that time it was the Women's Royal Army Corps, WRAC, and I stayed in there for just under 3 years. And I just started to make it up through the ranks as well. And at that time, you had to leave the army if you were having a baby.
Yeah, that was
so.
It was just
yeah, so that was that. Just
the end of that life.
Yep. Yeah. So, and I did like the army. I made lots of lovely friends. That camaraderie, going out into the naffy, getting drunk, but a very nice.
There's
group. Real family.
Family feeling to that. A few people I've spoke to so far in episodes, anyone that's been in the military in some degree says the same thing.
Yeah.
And I suppose it's very important when you're in that's really key, isn't it? That you've got that absolute togetherness.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah.
Right, your second choice, and like I always do when people send the songs in and the information about them, if I haven't heard them, I'll have a listen to them because I'd like to understand what they've picked. And this was really I've read here that how dreamy this song is, and it's Lucinda Drayton, 100,000 Angels.
Yeah, and I've heard that live. I've heard her sing it live as well twice. When she'd been on a silent retreat, and she was just, I think it was her first concert after that, and also in the O2, I think it was, but years ago. And I've briefly met Lucinda, but I absolutely adore this song. And it was during a time when I was lost, when I was a bit confused, I wasn't sure where I was going. I'd done lots and lots of careers by this time. And I've realised over the years that I'm a builder. So I love to start projects up. I love to build things up from the ground where people haven't built them up before. So I enjoy all that side of things. And then when it's built up, I like to leave and move on and let somebody else take over. So that then I can put my energy into a new project.
Start a new project and build something else.
And I like that. And it was at the time where I was just going through my beginnings of spiritual development, and I'd met a man. And we were just sitting together, and it was absolutely. He said, "Oh, I've got this record. I think you'll love it." So I was like, "Okay." So he played it, and it was just like, "Wow, this voice is amazing. It touches my soul, my heart. I need to know more about living like this, really." Yeah. And you know, those times where you didn't realise that actually you were dead inside. But it literally was one of those moments, and I was like, "Oh my God!"
Opened up your eyes to
and it's like, I want to be on this path. I want to be on this way, because that feeling was life changing.
Yeah. And that, but it's good you said that. I was going to say it's funny how some songs, and this is why I'm doing this, because I love talking to people about music and things. But some songs literally are life changing for people. The impact that music has on your life is incredible.
Yeah. And I love playing that song now in my women's circles as well, so that people can not necessarily have the same experience as me, because they won't, but actually to understand how different genres can have that effect on ourselves as well. And you know, that could be for somebody who likes Stone Roses. It could be that, you know, it doesn't have to be that calming music. It doesn't have to be that, you know, our soul wants to evolve. It wants to experience everything in life. And so it will certainly tell us when we're dead inside and need to move on. And when something hits your frequency. And it just resonates, isn't it? And it makes a massive difference. Okay. And your third of 5 choices, and actually, to be fair, you're another one who almost had a clean sweep, because only your 4th song choice I'd actually heard before. I'd heard of Elaine Page, but I hadn't. The song didn't
I've not heard the song before. So no one has yet to date picked 5 songs where I haven't known the song or the artist.
Right.
But you're one of 3 people who've had 4
right.
That I didn't know the song.
Oh, that's good.
So someone will catch me out one day.
Yeah.
Although I just
well, they catch me up, sure.
So your third choice is One Republic and I Lived.
Yeah. So doing BC Radio has started to rekindle that love of music.
Yeah.
And because I've kind of like been using different types of music to explain the topics that I've been talking about, when I came across this one, I was like, oh my God, I love this song. And it made me realise how many things I'd said yes to in my life.
Yeah.
And just taken those risks and thought, yeah, I've done that. Yeah, I've had a go at that. And one of those times was leaving the place where I lived, where my family was, and decided to go and live in Somerset for 3 years in a little log cabin about 17 foot long with me and my dog in the middle of nowhere. And just before COVID as well.
Oh, wow.
And it was wonderful. It was just being in nature, the silence, and I just needed to take that time to kind of bring myself back into balance and to realise what really was important to me in my life.
This was a kind of time of so you've took yourself away, like you say.
Yeah.
From living in a city.
Yeah.
To.
Yeah.
Really remote.
Yeah.
Totally different change of pace of life.
Yeah.
I mean, what were you doing to sustain yourself work-wise while you were there? Because if you're remote.
Yeah, so I taught adults with learning disabilities creative expression.
Right.
So there was, I hadn't been there long. I used to travel back up to Warwickshire for probably 3 months to because I worked at a children's centre.
Yeah.
And then I saw this advert on Facebook about they were looking for teachers, and I'm a qualified teacher, so I was like, oh, okay, I can have a go at that. So I went to see them. It was a project, and it was lovely. And I was like, oh, I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but I'll just have a go at this.
Yeah, just get involved.
Yeah. So I used to do it in an afternoon and just teach them about themselves, and it was about how can we put ourselves down on paper that really nobody else can understand, but we understand, and we're having fun at the same time. So it was kind of like, if I'm going to draw a sunflower, then it's not going to look like a sunflower, it's going to look like something that I think a sunflower looks at.
Your interpretation,
yeah. So it can be a little disconcerting and a little bit kind of like, because sometimes the parents would come and think, what is that? Yeah. But the fun and the joy and the laughter that we've had, again, which is where I was saying about it isn't the end of the journey, it's that process that you go through that is more important, because it shouldn't look like a sunflower. It should look like your creative expression of a sunflower.
Yeah.
And that's in a society where that's all kind of boxed in, that we should do this and we could do this and we, in order to fit in, we do this. But actually, the most creative people are thinking, I love to think outside of the box.
Yeah.
I like to do things that other people don't do. And I'm always thinking, oh, that's an original thought. It never is, but it's original for me.
Yeah.
Do you know? So that's the way that, so I loved that. And that helped me making that connection. And then I did it online when we was during COVID.
Yeah.
And then
a lot moved online, didn't it?
Yeah. And then I'd lived there for 3 years, and I thought, right, okay, now it's time to go back in life. I've taken myself out of life.
Yeah.
And now I'm feeling that pull towards going back towards family and life.
Gravitating back towards what you'd kind of moved away from for a short while.
And I think was it one of your other guests had on, was it Paul? He was saying about that if I've just got this intuitive hit to go or this place to go, I just leave my job and go.
Yeah,
I'm not quite that brave, I must say, but I certainly know that I've got to go and do this, and I might not move to that place, but I still take that intuitive hit and
and actually just make a move and make that happen.
Yeah, and that's why I don't like staying in one job for a long time either. Because to me it's boring, and I like to set things up, see them set up, and then move on.
Leave the running of it to someone else, and then that makes sense.
So when I listened to that, I Lived, that One Republic, it really made me think, I've ticked a few boxes here. Yeah, so talking about lots of things about having said yes to. So one of the things that I think in life that people forget to do is to celebrate the small wins rather than the big wins. The big wins we can see, they're tangible.
Yeah.
The big wins, but the things like the small wins is our celebration to self. How we've spoken up about something, how we've said no about something, how we've been compassionate and kind to somebody. And the most important thing, I think, for all of us is this journey between that masculine and feminine energy that lives inside of us all. And it's when we can find that a lot of people, and I work with a lot of people, a lot of women that are driven quite strongly all the time to get this done, to achieve, to do. And many forget about that just being and how we need both. So with the masculine energy, we drive, we get things done, it's our to-do list. With the feminine energy, it is pausing, it's breathing, it's intuition, it's going out into nature. It's taking that time out to realign and rebalance ourselves. And we need them both in our lives.
Yeah.
So if we've got the to-do list, then if we're not moving forward on our intuitive things, then we're just doing them for the sake of doing it. There's no passion in there, there's no purpose in there. So the small things need to be celebrated. And I think that I know that certainly with a lot of children, they find just that joy in there's a puddle or there's a leaf or things like that. And as we get to adulthood, we lose that. It can get all knocked out of us, our confidence, our self-esteem and self-worth. So I think it's really important to celebrate that there are always things happening for the good of us every single day.
Yeah.
And how we deal with things that are going wrong, that we would appear to be wrong, how we deal with those makes us more of that resilient character that we are and need to bring into things.
I think something you said there that does really resonate is how we're so caught up in achieving everything, all the big stuff.
Yeah.
And that made me think, and it's quite a few years old, there's a video I've seen of a really young kid. I'm saying maybe he's 18 months or something like this, little tiny lad, and he gets given I think it's a Christmas gift, or something like that. It's a banana. Yeah. But the excitement, it's one of the cutest things I've ever seen. He is absolutely over the moon, this little lad.
Yeah.
Banana, and he's dead excited. And I think we often forget to just enjoy the little things in life.
Yeah, because that's about that soul expression. So it's about being joyful, it's about looking for things that bring us joy, it's about us witnessing. So like my little 5-year-old grandson, he's just amazing, some of the little things that he comes out with. The fact is, if they say, oh, I love you, Grandma, or that he's so kind to my little dog, and just that gentle touching of the dog, it's just like it makes your heart melt. But we forget that when we're growing up because we're so busy. This has to be done, this has to be achieved, we've got to make this much money, we've got to do this and this. But actually they work great in tandem, that masculine feminine energy. Yeah,
absolutely. Totally agree. Talking of energy, links us quite nicely to a very energetic song. Alice Cooper, School's Out for Summer. I mean, what an anthem this is.
I did it. I loved Alice Cooper. I went to London to see him, and just amazing. But that song, I think I was about 14. We used to have to go to Christian church. Mum used to send us every Sunday, and we went because we liked the people that were there, and we, as kids, you had a good time. But every year they took us to Baslow in Derbyshire, to Christian camp, and we used to go in these big air raid shelters with bunk beds and everything. As a kid, you're excited, and we used to go there for about 5 years, I think it was, and you'd have your torch and you'd have your food and all of those kind of things.
It's an adventure, isn't it?
Yeah, and we used to love it. And that song was, so we were one evening, I think we'd had some music or something, and I was thinking, I just need to be outside. So I went outside and looked up at the stars, and then all of a sudden I just felt this massive energy. It's the only way that I could describe it. Just like I filled up. I felt like so connected to the stars and the sky and the universe, and it was just like, wow. I didn't understand it at that time. I didn't know what was happening, but there was just this joy, this absolute joy for no reason. Just standing outside, and afterwards I thought, oh, maybe it was because I was doing this and this, but no, it was for that real deep connection. But years afterwards I realised that actually it was my first connection to the Christ consciousness, however we see that, to something bigger than myself. And I couldn't explain it, but it came in, and then I never had it again until I started on my spiritual path and did my mediumship. And it was like, oh, now I understand what that
you get what that was now.
You've
been on that journey.
But I didn't understand it then. So that schools out for me that whole experience, and it was that, that camp and being that connected, but it really was that opening of me realigning to something bigger than myself. And however much I denied that over the years, and of course obviously as a consequence of that, with keeping that grief of my dad passing, then over those next years after he died, the grief had to come out. The grief had to come out. And so I'd gone on a spiritual retreat, which I didn't know at the time. I thought it was a pampering retreat. And I walked around there with my little suitcase in the middle of Wales. I was like, oh my God, this is so not a pampering retreat. I was like, what have I done?
What have I bought myself up into?
But it was one of the best times ever. And I kind of like connected to the earth and to the people there, and just the way of life and that spiritual path, and just did healing. And then I felt like I'd spent the week with my dad. That energy, that presence of love was just amazing. And I thought, oh, if I can feel this, then I'm going to work with other people who can feel this energy. And so that kind of like, then I was on a mission to do that and run my spiritual groups, and just to teach in and bringing out that other side, and slotting in that energy work and intuition, and how the crystals, and I just went off on that whole journey.
Immersed yourself in it all.
And it was so exciting. It and it was passionate, and it was lovely. And I'm just thinking, I this is what I can bring to the earth. And this is my uniqueness, if you like, and my difference.
Gifts and purpose. And it's fascinating stuff. I mean, I for many years was not particularly spiritual. Not that I would consider myself spiritual, but I'm very much, having met lots of people in that field, I'm much more open to it. I find it really intriguing, and it is a fascinating area and topic. And also as well, like a lot of people feel alone in different circumstances. But when you're connected to that energy, you understand that life really is transient, and energy is transient, and we can feel like this one moment, and then we can bring ourselves back into balance. And so therefore then we move from the head into the heart, and we're like, right, so the next step is this. I need to grieve, I need to cry, I need to be vulnerable. And vulnerability is a huge topic, because people tend to think it's a weakness, but actually it's a real strength, because it connects us more to ourselves. That vulnerability, to realise that actually in that masculine energy I've carried on for too long being driven, too long to not understanding really what is important in life, and I've placed a lot of importance on doing for other people. And so therefore then you have to bring the body back into balance, and then connecting with that heart space. And that's why that those songs that I've chosen, they take me all to that place. And that's from the love of doing the radio as well. And songs that I've never heard of, when you were saying before, it's like, oh, I've never heard of that one, or I haven't heard of that one for so long. And then it's like, oh, I can play that one now. That fits in with what your topic is.
So it was a very eye-opening 20-30 years. But it takes you, I've got a little dog now, and she's my soulmate, my little dog, and she came in, she's 8 now, and she taught me how to be more humble, more kind, more softer with myself, and then how to relax that need to control things. you know, where I need to be in control, I need to get this sorted, and to take my foot off that pedal and to be more in flow with life, and just that softness and tenderness. And when I first used to speak to her, if I said Molly, and I'd say it really sharply, her lip would literally physically wobble.
Like a little wobble.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my God. And it I thought, this is too harsh her energy, Debbie, you know? Because I was too focused in getting this right and getting that right. And it was like, you know, we need to soften this, Debbie, because this is not the way that we communicate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all she's going to do is just go away.
Just going to push her away.
Yeah, exactly. So it doesn't just apply to animals, it applies to people. We can all feel that energy of a room where somebody's been in and we don't know why, but we can feel the energy when we walk into, you know, we can say to ourselves, I like you, I'm not quite sure about you, I don't know, instead of readily jumping in to belong and think I need to fit in with this person because, and it can come from that assumption that that person can do something for me, whereas it needs to be in balance. I can do something for you and you can do something for me, but it shouldn't be the first thought.
No, and there's a lot, I mean, something I've sort of come across is, and it makes a lot of sense with frequency and whatever, but when you say you're on somebody's wavelength, and it makes sense. Some people that you'll meet, or some people might meet you, and they just, without really having spent any time, there is something there where you're like, I don't, not like I don't like you, that's the wrong word, but there's something about you that I can't quite put my finger on, and it isn't right for me, and vice versa, and there's a lot to be said about that, about trusting that kind of intuition or whatever it
is, and you can either have that immediate hit and ignore it, and try to fit in, because you think it might be good for something, and then to work out actually that was never. I had loads of signs, I had loads of, you know, my body was telling me no, pull away from that, but I overrid that with the masculine energy just to get something from it, whereas you would have got far more a softer energy by pulling away and thinking, no thank you, not for me at this time.
This isn't right.
Yeah. And that, like I was talking about, was the boundaries, by saying, you know, well, let me think about that, rather than rushing in and go, yeah, I'll do that for you. Let me think about that. Get some little good phrases that actually say, can I come back to you on that? I really like that idea, but can I come back to you on that? Rather than, I'll do that. That people pleasing.
People pleasing.
That we all do, you know, at times. And that's what I was saying about the sovereignty of self. We understand when we bring everything back to our own sovereignty, we are our own guru. We don't need to go outside and look for gurus and spiritual leaders and things like that. We need to develop that within ourselves so that we feel confident about ourselves.
And someone, I don't know who, you see and read so much later, but somebody said, no is a complete sentence, and that really struck me. It's like, oh, do you want to do that? No, I don't have to explain myself. No, I don't need to justify myself. No, just not interested. And that's what I was saying. There are steps to be able to get the body to understand that no. So that you're embodying that no. So it doesn't come out harshly. It just comes out end of conversation. Horrible. It's still, and this kind of maybe link, and you mentioned that you just said the words actually, which was called humble and kind. You don't have to be horrible, you don't have to be mean. No. It's just said from a place of, well, no. That's it.
It's a beautiful, beautiful song. I only come across it, I think it was last year, and I've not heard of Tim McGraw before, but actually being that humble and kind means that for me, it kind of reminds me how far I've come on my spiritual path, how proud I am of that. And I'm potentially not a lover of the word spiritual, because it kind of puts it into a genre, it puts it into to a religion. And actually for me it's more about just bringing out everything that's inside of us and expressing it in our unique way. But I think that's the word of the moment. But I think it really is about that connection to self. It's around that confidence that we have, that self-esteem, and becoming resilient, and then learning those lessons. We've integrated that no. So, or we've integrated those boundaries, or we've integrated being humble and kind. And it doesn't mean to say I'll be walked all over being humble. What it means is, wow, look how far I've come as an individual. Look how much my soul has grown in this lifetime that it's come to experience. And that I'm listening to that as well, and that I'm able then to move forward and go and think, right, what my soul really wants now is some fun. What my soul really wants now is to be creative. What it really wants now is to go and read a book, or to connect with other people. Because we do all need other people, but we need the right people around us. Because if people are not nurturing towards us, if they're not nourishing our soul, then and feeding that, that connection that we have, then actually we, why are we with people?
It's pointless, isn't it? People are either radiators or they're drains, aren't they?
For sure. And we know, but we just have to have that confidence and think, oh, why did I waste my time doing that? But it isn't a waste of time, because what happens is that if we integrate that by learning that lesson, then that turns into wisdom.
It's served a purpose, hasn't it? It's helped you to understand something or learn or develop.
And that's where that softness comes in, that say, God, it's taken me 10, 20 years to learn that lesson. But I've learnt it.
I've still learnt it.
I've learnt it, and that's the celebration. Whereas it's not an outward thing, celebration, it's an inward thing. It's an inward journey with ourselves. And we don't need to go and tell everybody that we've done it. That we can, people will know that from our energy. They will know that.
And something I wanted to ask you is, obviously you've got a lot of different approaches or areas within, I don't have to use the word spiritual again, but within that arena, what's the one that you're most drawn to? So, obviously there's things that you use or work with, and you were talking about mediumship, and there's obviously crystals or all sorts of aspects of that world. But is there one that you kind of like gravitate to the most?
I think that's really hard, because before, when I was using my mediumship, I used to do the SNU churches, the Spiritual and National Union churches, be on platform, and bring people's loved ones through to people. I absolutely loved it, and I was definitely one of those people that if I would say I would have the energy of your father or your mother, I would have it. I just couldn't, from that integral point of view and that pureness of spirit, then it was, you would feel it. You would feel it. So it took me a long time, and actually that was my training ground for all the doubt, all people thinking, why are people better than me? Why is it easier for them to connect? Why can't I do it? All that self-defecation over and over the years. But it was that training ground that actually says, you can do this, Debbie. And that's why I love teaching people about that connection to source. Because actually, when we got beginners, they always are being humble and saying, no, I haven't this, that and the other. But they are the best, because they have nothing to judge it on. They, like sometimes when we learn something, then we put all this pressure on ourselves to keep that learning going and things like that. But actually, when you're starting anything new, you're curious. You want to know, you want to learn. There's that passion and that drive. So and now I use those skills in my spiritual coaching. I use it in my sacred ceremonies. I use it on the radio. So I use that that mediumship, that spiritual intuition, if you like, that listening, that compassion, that kindness. I use all of those when I'm working with people. And that's what I like. If I'm teaching, when I'm lecturing at the college, then I will bring that angle in there for people to understand a little bit more about themselves, and to go off and then find their own way.
Find their own
path. Okay. And knowing then that somewhere along the line I've made that difference. And there is a beautiful air guitar bit at the end.
And there is, Can't forget the little air guitar bit, Everyone loves a bit of air guitar. Exactly.
But that taught me a while to be able to do that and not worry about things, over the years. Like, oh God. And I was one of those people, one of those kids that was silenced, didn't have a view, was invisible when I was young. I thought, oh God, do I really have an opinion? You know that it took me. They were a lot of the lessons.
Be able to stand up and say something.
And so you can imagine being on that mediumship to actually stand there, and people, you know, the whole congregation, the whatever, people looking at you, waiting just for you.
Yeah.
And all the doubt and all the insecurity that went with that, and then having to put that to one side and think there's a bigger picture here, Debbie. Yeah. This is not about you. This is about that love and energy that you're going to bring to other people.
Yeah.
So So yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. So obviously, I'll put everything in the description. I think I said that at the beginning.
Yeah.
But if people want to get in touch and talk about these things, whether it's coming on the radio show perhaps, or coming along to one of your circles.
Yeah.
So you run in person. Do you run online groups as well?
Not at the moment.
So it's in Warwickshire.
One's in Balsall Common.
Yeah.
And one is in Solihull.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I run those two at the moment. They're face to face, monthly.
It's probably the sort of thing that needs to be in person from my point of view.
Yeah.
But yeah. So we'll add those in. But thank you very much for coming along.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, cheers.
Yeah. Lovely. Thank you, Neil.
That's it.